Have you ever asked yourself why it hurts so deeply? Why, even when things seem to be in order, there's still this unshakable weight on your chest, this quiet but persistent feeling that something isn't quite right? Maybe you've tried everything: meditation, advice from well-meaning friends, or numbing the pain with a smile and pretending everything is fine. And yet, the suffering lingers, like a silent shadow that never leaves your side. Let me share with you something that perhaps no one has had the honesty or courage to say out loud. Most of your suffering doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from within, from the parts of yourself you refuse to face, from the fragments of your soul that you've abandoned. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, once said, "What you do not make conscious will manifest as fate." And that, right there, is the root of what you're experiencing. Life has been trying to show you something, and you've been ignoring it. You run from it. You hide behind distractions, dependencies, hollow relationships. You tell yourself, it'll go away. But it doesn't, does it? Because pain doesn't want to be ignored. It demands to be understood. This isn't just another generic piece of self-help fluff. I'm not here to hand you overused affirmations or magical advice. I'm here to challenge you, to invite you to confront what you've buried so deep you pretend it doesn't even exist. Give me a few minutes of your time, just a few, and I'll help you understand why it hurts so much, and how that pain can become the doorway to something profoundly transformative. Maybe you're currently at your lowest point. Maybe you're standing on the edge of a breakdown, smiling on the outside while quietly unraveling inside. Or maybe you've simply grown used to carrying pain like it's just part of life. Whatever your story, there's one truth you need to hear now. Suffering continues only because you haven't yet had the courage to look at its true origin. Jung spent his life exploring this dark territory, the realm of the soul. He knew that only those brave enough to face their own shadow could discover the true light. And if you're ready to begin this journey with me, I promise you one thing: you will not be the same person by the end. What you discover here might alter the way you see yourself, your suffering, and your freedom forever. Let's start. You believe you're suffering because of other people, because of your boss, your partner, the financial pressure, societal expectations, and of course, all of that has weight. But what you haven't yet realized, and must realize now, is that the most paralyzing kind of suffering comes from being disconnected from your own essence. Carl Jung once said that the greatest tragedy of the soul is to live a life that isn't truly yours. And that's exactly what you've been doing. Since childhood you were taught to fit in, to be liked, to meet expectations, and little by little, you lost your connection to yourself. You became a persona designed to please, a puppet designed not to disturb. You silenced your longings, buried your emotions, swallowed your rage, and repressed your sadness. Now you carry around a pain you can't even name, a pain that doesn't scream but gnaws at you. This is the suffering of someone who has grown used to pretending, of someone who stares into the mirror and no longer knows who is looking back. You've adapted so well to the role you were given, but your soul hasn't. The soul always feels. It knows when it's living a lie, and so it begins to scream through anxiety, through insomnia, through numbness and guilt. Emotional pain isn't weakness. It's the soul's alarm system telling you you're betraying yourself. Let's not get confused. It's not failure that wounds you. It's the false image you constructed of who you're supposed to be. It's not loneliness that breaks your heart. It's the emptiness of no longer knowing who you are when you're alone. It's not others that hurt you. It's every moment you abandon yourself for the sake of appearance. As long as this disconnection exists, the suffering will go on. Because you're trying to heal what you think is an external wound when the real injury is within. But here's the key insight. Pain is not a life sentence, it's a signal. Jung believed that suffering is the first call of transformation. Pain isn't here to destroy you. It's here to bring you back, to return you to yourself. And that return begins when you stop escaping and start listening. Listening to what was buried, silenced, forgotten. In the next section, we'll explore the most powerful and feared force within the psyche. The one Jung called the shadow. If you're truly ready to stop suffering, then you must understand it. You must face it. You want to stop suffering, but all your energy is focused on silencing the symptoms instead of confronting the root cause. Anxiety, guilt, anger, sadness. You've treated them as enemies, flaws that must be erased. But here's a truth you may not be ready to hear. The real enemy is not out there. It's hidden within you, quiet, unacknowledged. And that's exactly where its power lies. Carl Jung called this hidden force the shadow. And don't be fooled. Everyone carries one, including you. The shadow is made up of everything you've rejected about yourself, your suppressed desires, your unspoken rage, the shame you hide, the vulnerability you deny, the fears you pretend not to have. It includes your hidden envy, your concealed pride, your silenced sexuality. It is everything you didn't want to be, or weren't allowed to be, but that still exists, alive and active in the dark corners of your psyche. The shadow doesn't sleep. It seeps into your thoughts, poisons your choices, and manipulates your emotions. It distorts how you relate to others and how you treat yourself, all while remaining invisible. Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So when you find yourself repeating toxic patterns, sabotaging your own happiness, attracting pain again and again, it's not random, it's your shadow in control, and facing it. That requires courage. Most people run from, because you'll have to admit things you don't want to admit. You'll have to stop pretending to be the victim and accept that there's a part of you contributing to your own suffering. You'll have to look in the mirror and see not just the parts you love, but the ones you loathe. And here's the most profound truth. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the orphaned part of your soul. The one you exiled, abandoned, silenced. And like any part that's been rejected, it only wants one thing: to be seen, to be heard, to be brought back into the light. Jung didn't advocate getting rid of the shadow. He believed in embracing it, integrating it, transforming it. Because what you reject weakens you, but what you accept empowers you. What you repress rules you in secret, but what you face becomes your strength. So what do you do now with this truth staring back at you? You move toward it. In the next section, we'll talk about how to begin that journey. The path of real courage. The first step toward healing, not just your pain but your fractured identity. Because knowing your shadow is only the beginning. What you choose to do with it, that's what changes everything. You've made it this far. You've faced the uncomfortable truth about your disconnection. You've peeked into the dark eyes of your shadow. Now comes the hardest part, the confrontation. Insight alone is never enough. Understanding is the doorway, but transformation requires action. Raw, real, often uncomfortable action. Because now you must do what most people avoid their entire lives. Walk into the fire of your own unconscious. cross through the internal storm without blindfolds or filters. Jung was crystal clear. This path is not for the faint of heart. The road to the self is the path of the brave, and bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's movement in spite of fear. To face the unconscious is to walk into territory where logic fails, where control dissolves, and where nothing familiar offers safety. It is choosing to drop the mask, to release the persona, to say, I won't lie to myself anymore. What does this mean in practice? It means listening to your body when your mind tries to silence it. That gut ache when you're with the wrong person, that suffocating pressure in your chest when you say yes but mean no. That heavy exhaustion when you fake joy. These aren't coincidences, they're messages. Your body is trying to rescue you, not destroy you. So start with the small things. Write down your dreams, track your emotional triggers, reflect on repetitive life patterns. Every breakdown carries a symbol. Every crisis hides a lesson. The unconscious speaks in symbols. Your job now is to learn its language, not with urgency, not with judgment, but with presence. One of the most powerful tools for this, deep writing. Sit down daily and write as if no one will ever read it. Confess what you've never dared to admit. Let the truth bleed through the page. Your shame, your jealousy, your secret fantasies, your regrets. Write it all, because once these words leave the prison of silence, they lose their power to haunt you. Another tool, the therapeutic mirror. Whether with a psychologist or a skilled guide, start interpreting the signals your psyche is sending. Jung reminded us that the unconscious isn't a trash bin, it's a living intelligence. It wants to show you the truth. It wants to heal you, but only if you have the humility to listen, without filters, without excuses, without armor. So you want to stop suffering? Then you have to stop running, because suffering only chases those who flee. But the moment you stop and face it, the pain begins to shift. It begins to transform. And in that moment, you'll realize something no one told you before. The pain you feared the most was never here to destroy you. It was the portal. And that is exactly what we'll explore next. The role of pain in your life, why it persists, even when everything seems to be under control, and most importantly, how it can become your most powerful ally on the path to freedom. The majority of people live their lives trying to erase pain. They take pills, bury themselves in distractions, dive into shallow relationships, chase temporary highs, collect accomplishments, and curated smiles, all to avoid feeling. But here's the uncomfortable truth, that few dare to say the more you try to eliminate pain, the more it will pursue you. Because pain is not a flaw. Pain is not an error in your code. Pain is a message. Carl Jung didn't see suffering as life's failure, but as life's invitation to evolve. Pain is a signal that something inside you is broken, misaligned, begging to be acknowledged. It is the soul's cry saying, "This can't continue." Every ache carries a hidden truth. Every discomfort contains data, but you've been taught to treat pain like a problem to be fixed, instead of a message to be heard. What if you stopped seeing it as your enemy and began seeing it as your guide? Think back on every major transformation you've experienced. Did any of them begin in comfort? Probably not. Growth rarely blooms in ease. The soul doesn't evolve in still waters. It awakens in storms. The psyche doesn't rebuild itself in silence. It cries out during collapse. That's why Jung said, suffering must be fully experienced in order to be overcome. Pain, in other words, must be walked through, not avoided. Let's ground this in reality. Picture someone who spends their entire life saying yes when they mean no. Always helpful, always available, always smiling. Little by little, anxiety creeps in. Fatigue, sudden sadness. They visit doctors, take pills, try yoga, but nothing works. Because the body is voicing what the mind refuses to face. Living disconnected from your truth hurts. And it will keep hurting until you stop betraying yourself. Another example, someone keeps falling into the same kind of relationship. Partners who are emotionally distant, unavailable, withholding. The outcome is always the same. Rejection, abandonment, the nagging belief that they're not enough. This isn't bad luck. It's a mirror. Life is repeating the pattern to show you there's a wound here, an old one, likely from childhood, and until it's addressed, pain will keep showing up, because that's what pain does. It reminds you. But something remarkable happens when you begin to decode pain as symbolic language. What once felt like punishment transforms into direction. Pain becomes a compass, and as strange as it may sound, you begin to see suffering, true conscious suffering, as one of the most powerful catalysts for transformation. Why? Because it stops you in your tracks. It forces you to reflect, to reevaluate, to return. And this brings us to a pivotal moment: responsibility. Now that you know all this, now that you've seen the deeper role of pain, you can no longer pretend to be unaware. Ignoring your suffering is now the same as ignoring yourself. Running from pain becomes an act of self-abandonment. But if you have the courage to sit with it, to feel it, to ask it what it's trying to tell you, without judgment, without rushing to escape, it will take you somewhere you've never been before. A place called wholeness. Not because the outside world becomes perfect, but because you stop being at war with yourself. And in the next part, we'll talk about that place, the other side of pain. What happens when you stop resisting and begin embracing all the parts of yourself you once rejected? What happens when healing becomes integration, not escape? Because true healing isn't about eliminating pain. It's about transmuting it into power, into wisdom, into clarity. And that's what we'll uncover next. There comes a moment, after countless internal battles, when something subtle but profound shifts. Not in the form of fireworks or loud awakenings, but like a soft breeze you barely notice, yet it transforms the entire atmosphere of your being. It's the moment you stop resisting, and perhaps for the first time in your life, you begin to feel whole. But what does becoming whole really mean? It means accepting everything you are, even the parts you once wished didn't exist. It means ending the war with your emotions. It means taking off the mask, letting go of the need to appear perfect, dropping the script. Wholeness is when you finally understand your anger, your fear, your sadness, your shame. They're not enemies. They're parts of you, essential parts. And when you stop rejecting them and begin to integrate them, something miraculous happens. The pain begins to dissolve. Carl Jung called this process individuation, not in the sense of becoming special or unique, but in the sense of becoming yourself, the real you, without distortion, a full, undivided human being, honest, authentic, rooted. And that authenticity doesn't come from pride, it comes from acceptance. It's not about finding yourself, it's about becoming yourself. Because only those who dare to walk into the ruins of their soul and rebuild it brick by brick can truly say, I know who I am. At this stage, something changes. You no longer hide your pain, because it no longer defines you. You understand now that the pain was the path, not the prison. You look back and see how every breakdown had meaning, Every collapse had purpose. Every fall stripped you of illusion. It forced you to let go of what was false, so you could step into what is real. And this truth isn't comfortable. It asks for presence. It demands choice. Because once you see your shadow, once you understand your suffering, once you feel what it's like to be whole, you can't go back. You stop tolerating what you once accepted, just to keep the peace. You start saying no, without guilt. And for the first time, you say yes to yourself. This internal shift doesn't scream, but it's undeniable. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about ending the betrayal of who you've always been. And here, finally, you discover what no one told you. You didn't need to heal to be worthy of love. You just needed to stop running from yourself, because the peace you've been chasing was never out there. It was waiting inside. But beware, this is the moment where many people stop. The pain subsides. The old patterns start to fade. Life begins to feel lighter. And then comes the most seductive trap of all, comfort. It whispers, "You've done enough. You've come far. Rest here." But there's one more step. A step that Jung considered essential. A step most never take. Because healing isn't complete until it becomes contribution. The question now is, what will you do with your light? Now that you've walked through your own darkness, how will you live now that you're awake? This is what the final stage is all about. The conscious decision to live differently, not just to survive, but to exist with purpose, with presence, with integrity. Because once you've been reborn, life no longer lets you stay small. Now you know you can't pretend anymore. You've heard the words, you've felt the truth pierce you, and still you stayed. That alone puts you among the few. Most people run when the truth gets sharp. Most people choose sleep over awakening. You didn't. You stayed. And now you have a choice to make. A real one. Will you keep repeating the cycles that have kept you stuck? Or will you finally rise into full ownership of your life? It doesn't matter how much pain you've endured. It doesn't matter what others did to you. What matters now is what you do with all of it. Because the wounds you've carried for years, they can become your power. The emptiness you tried to fill with noise and approval, it can become sacred silence. The trauma that once defined you, it can become the foundation of your freedom. But remember, this awareness has a cost. Once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you know the truth, ignorance is no longer an option. You've been called to live on a higher plane now, a plane that demands more of you. Not perfection, but honesty. Not control, but alignment. You're no longer allowed to betray yourself for comfort. You no longer have the excuse of not knowing better. You don't need to be 100% ready. No one ever is. What you need is to decide, to choose, every day, to live consciously, to face yourself with courage, with compassion, with truth, and above all, to act. Because knowledge without action is just another form of self-deception. Carl Jung said that individuation, the journey of becoming whole, is the task of a lifetime. And maybe, just maybe, today was your first real step on that path. Maybe this was the day you stopped seeing yourself as broken and began to understand that you are in process, in transformation, that the suffering wasn't a punishment, it was a message, a call, a sacred invitation from your soul to return home. So now I ask you, what was the part of this message that struck you the most? What truth grabbed you and refused to let go? Comment below. Write it out, not for me, but for you.
as a commitment, a declaration, because when you put words to what you felt, you anchor it in your being, and who knows, your story might be the medicine someone else needs right now. If this message touched you, challenged you, woke something up inside you, don't stop here. There's more. The next video continues exactly where this one leaves off. You're not alone. You're on the path now, and I'll be right here, walking beside you. I'll see you there.